Right, let's try this again. Let's try this again. Yeah, well, let's see if you guys can hear me. Let's see if you guys can hear me. There we go. All right. Can you guys hear me? Question mark. Let's try this again. Let us try this again. Transition. Should be able to see me now as well. See me, hear me. Everything is good. We are not giving up. And excellent, Roberto. Thank you so much. I do appreciate that. Fabulous. Okay, so then we can get started then again, which is interesting. All right. So officially, welcome back to another episode of well, LS Aviation live stream. This is the fifth live stream that I've done for this year. The fifth live stream that I've done for this channel, actually. And as some of you who may not have noticed, followers of the channel, I have not posted in quite some time, which is for a month and a week, since the beginning of June, and now I have not posted. Apologies for that. Work has been very busy. For the month of June, I actually maxed out my FDPs, which is great. For those of you who do not know what FDPs are, which FDPs are flight duty period, and under an ATO, Aviation Training Organization, the maximum amount a flight instructor can do is 66.6 hours, which surprisingly I did exactly 66.6 hours, which was interesting. So that's been June. I want to say that I've done. Apologies about that. I want to say that just saying bye to the darling here. There we go. Okay. Right. So yeah, so for the month of June, it's been quite a busy month, and one of the reasons why I wanted to do a live stream today is because there's an expo that I've been attending for the past 2 days. Yesterday, which is a Thursday, and today, I've been attending Aero Expo 2023, which is based at Vonderboom Airport in Pretoria, South Africa, and I have come across one or two, three, four followers, 4 fans of the channel, of the YouTube channel, and you know what? It reminded me as to why I make content for the channel. When you start to continuously produce content, you start to lose focus as to why you're doing it, and then the focus sort of turns towards, I need to produce more content, and then you start to lose the main point of doing the whole thing. And they reminded me, or one particular person reminded me, Nonofo, if you're watching this or will be watching this, you have reminded me of the fact that the channel is here to provide exposure to what the Southern African aviation industry is about, to provide exposure to or connectivity of the different silos that we experience here. There's different silos of information, and they're not talking to each other. Exposure to guidance for career guidance in this particular part of the world, and then inspiration as well. So Nonofo, you reminded me about that, and thank you for that. I appreciate it, and that is one of the reasons why I decided to put this video out today, because I thought, I haven't done it in a while, and I just need to get out, and I just need to have a discussion and engagement with you guys. So the other inspiration of doing this video is that in attendance of Aero Expo 2023, there are a lot of glass avionics providers, right? And I wanted to discuss about how easy it is to transition from a flight training environment to a commercial environment. And in terms of analog displays, which is what a lot of flight schools have in terms of aircraft, to a glass cockpit. Mr. Pilot Inati, a good evening to you. And Mr. Roberto, a good evening. Well, I don't know if you're here in Southern Africa, but if you are, a good evening to you as well. It is very nice to see you guys again. It is very nice to re-engage with you guys again. So a good evening. Okay, so then, for those of you who have or are engaged in pilot training, you will know that you will mostly come across analog glass cockpit displays. It's actually a very interesting question as to who provides, not glass, analog displays, but who provided these avionics. Perhaps it was the manufacturer of aircraft, but I doubt it. You will find for the communication stack, the radio stack, to communicate with air traffic control or air traffic control, you would mostly use the Bendix system. You will find that the Bendix system is in terms of R&D, research and development, and the avionics that they provide, is old. They have not been keeping up with the industry, and as such have in themselves become old school. Bendix is still around. Bendix King is still around, but it has been bought out, I think, by Honeywell, and they now call it Aeronav. So you will find glass avionics instruments from Bendix King, but they're essentially Honeywell systems in place with the Bendix name. Not even the Bendix name, the Aeronav name. So that's that. Now, let's get into it. Gonna transition here. All right, you guys can still hear me. You can still hear me. I hope you can still. Hope you can, just comment. Just please tell me, because I am monitoring the chat. I'm monitoring the chat here on my phone. I want to make sure that you guys can hear what I'm saying. This time, we don't want to make any mistakes. Okay, so I've got a PPT over here, and we're gonna go through this. And it is essentially about the battle of the glass, right? Or the battle of glass cockpits. So then, there are different types of aircraft that we are going to cover. We will cover the LSA market, light sport aircraft. We will cover the certified aircraft market. And then from then on forth, it would be corporate aviation, your turboprops, your King Airs, your Bombardiers, your G5000 or G500, sorry, Gulfstream, or G650. And then your commercial aviation, which is your Airbus A320s, your Boeing 777s or 737s, and that's about it. Then we'll just highlight a little bit about the military market as well. I wanna say this: glass cockpit displays, the innovation of the glass cockpit, always comes first from the military market, because military air forces have the biggest budgets in the world. Defense has the biggest budget in the world, particularly the U.S. Air Force, or the DoD, Department of Defense, I believe. Department of Defense, and then in the UK you have the MOD, Ministry of Defense, and all across Europe as well. Big budgets, right? And so they have enough money to purchase new systems. Those new systems then initially trickle down to the corporate aviation market. Your Gulfstreams, your Bombardiers, your Embraers, and so on and so forth. The reason being, of course, is that you have high net worth individuals and corporate or corporations, which they themselves have the budget to purchase these extra options and features that they can install in the flight deck of their aircraft. Right? So, corporate aviation and the private jet market in the civilian world have the latest avionics. From there, it goes to commercial aviation. Why, you may ask? Why do commercial operators, airliners, that of Airlink, that of Qatar Airways, Ryanair, etc., why is it that, oh, that's nice. Why is it that they're not installing the latest avionics on their airplanes, but just the required avionics for their operations? Well, think about it. They want a standardized fleet, and with a standardized fleet, they don't need all the fancy features on board to do the job. They have a specific mission in place: get passengers from point A to point B reliably and consistently, and with whatever meteorological conditions that they may face. Can I have a system on board that would allow my crew to fly through it, fly through those weather systems, and make it safe? Do I need this extra avionics that you're talking to or pitching to me in order to do that mission? No? Then why do I need it? Why am I wasting money on that? If I pay for such systems, I'm now increasing the price point of plane tickets to my customers. I'm now increasing the price point of cargo space to my customers. I need to be competitive in the marketplace, and now putting in new fancy avionics systems is not something that I, as an operator, an airline operator, would be interested in. Okay, just to give you an example in terms of more to home, those who are in general aviation. If you were to purchase the latest glass cockpit system for a Cessna 172, for Sling, for a whichever, I don't know, TBM 750 or 850 or an M600, which is a Piper, you would essentially be spending, or even a Baron 58, you'd be spending about $70,000 on a new system. That's $70,000 on avionics system on an aircraft that might only cost about $40,000 on the second-hand marketplace or less. So you understand. Now, if you expand that, right? You expand that to the airline market. Why would an airline therefore want to be spending excess amount of money on such avionics? Okay, so that's the general idea. Okay, so now let's have a look at the different manufacturers, some of the biggest manufacturers that we have for the different categories of airplanes: light sport aircraft, certified single engine piston, multi-engine piston, and light turbine turboprops, light and corporate jets, which involve turboprops as well, commercial aviation jets, and then military jets. Okay. Right. So then, in the light sport market, we have what is called, or we have Dynon. Dynon has cornered non-certified glass panels or glass cockpit display. I have had an experience on a LSA called, it's gone, it's a Czech plane. The Akayo code for it is Zulu 189, I believe. And it had the Dynon EFS D10A or D10A. Simple device, but just had all sorts of information provided. We had the PFD and then the MFD. And the MFD had, in fact, the PFD, the PFD was the MFD. I'm going to talk a bit more about the philosophy between primary flight displays and multi-flight displays. But it displayed on a glass panel your six-pack, your engine management system, and what else did this display? I can't remember. Oh, then the moving map as well. VFR moving map. So Dynon, uncertified or the non-certified displays is perfect for the VFR market. So that's that. Then you move on to the certified single-engine piston and multi-engine piston markets. Single-engine piston being your Cessnas, your Diamonds, your Piper, and so on and so forth. In this marketplace, particularly the flight training segment, a lot of aircraft today still have analog displays and the Bendix King system, right? So now if you were to upgrade in the second-hand market, you would most likely get let's not even talk about upgrade. Let's say if you were to buy the newer model Cessna 172S or SP, or if you were to buy the newer, I can't remember the LX version of the Piper Cherokee or Piper Archer LX, and then the DA40. All these newer models, which cost in the $200,000 to $300,000 or so dollar market, interesting. All these newer models would come with a G1000 or an Avidyne system installed. In the second-hand market, with your analog displays, you can upgrade to what I would like to call modular installations, right? But before we get into the modular installations, I just want to give an example of what a PFD and MFD looks like and how the philosophy of PFD and MFD will translate all the way to the airliner world, corporate aviation world, contract world, as well as the airliner world, okay? So let's have a look at one of the earliest PFD MFD models, which is the Garmin G1000. Now, the Garmin G1000 wasn't the first. It wasn't the first manufacturer to provide such glass panels. Actually, allegedly, it was Avidyne with the Avidyne Electra. I can't remember what it's called. Which came out just before the Garmin G1000. G1000 came out in June 2004. That is old. That is almost 20 years ago. So, yeah, the G1000, till today, the latest version is called the G1000 NXI, Next Generation Integrated Flight Deck, introduced in 2017. Okay. And then the G1000 up till today has been fitted or retrofitted into about 20,000 or more aircraft, including 700 King Airs. King Air is a big fan of the G1000. So let's have a look at what that looks like. Right? It's divided into two panels. Tiro, what you saying, my friend? On my side, the quality is only up to 240p. Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder why that's the case. 240p, and you can't even increase it more to 1080p. That's odd. Let me see if I can change that over here. Maybe it will allow me to change the settings. Let's go to settings. Maybe that's because, let's go to stream. Nope. Output. Oh, okay. Audio bitrate. Kilo. Oh, I see. Encoder. Let's see. Can we increase that? Maybe I can increase that to 1080 and apply and press OK. And then let's see if that will change it. Let me try and change it on my side. There we go. Don't know if that's going to make a difference. Let me see if that makes a difference. Okay. And I'm going to check. Still saying 240. Is it still saying 240 on your side, guys? 240p. Yeah, I think it's still saying 240p. And video. All right, well, I'll keep, you know what? I'll keep playing with the settings. I think in this situation, what I might actually try and do is I'm going to send this presentation, put a link to the presentation. Link to the presentation somewhere online. And then I'll put it in the description of the video, and then you guys will be able to see it a lot more clearly. Oh, you're saying it's better? Okay. Well, I don't know what that did, but excellent. It did something. Right. So let's let me go back to this. Right. It's now 360p. Fascinating. All right. Okay. Well, we'll go with that for now, and I'll try later on. So, right, the philosophy behind the G1000. The G1000, you have a PFD, which is a primary flight display on the left-hand side, and then you have an MFD on the right-hand side, multifunction display. In the middle, we have something called the GMA1347 audio panel. It is like if you have used an aircraft system that has the GNS 430, the Garmin GNS 430, let me show you an example of the Garmin GNS 430, which is this one here, which you will find in quite a number of older generation Cessnas and Pipers. Let's put it that way. Then on top of the GNS 430, which is this one right over here, okay. On top of the GNS 430, we have the GMA 340 audio panel. Forget the GMA 345, which is on the right-hand side here. It's the GMA 340. This is the audio panel that a lot of us know. You know, you can press COM1, COM2. I don't know why they put a COM3 feature. I have never seen. I mean, that's nice to have a COM3 feature where you can listen to a third frequency. Great. Don't know why you would be listening, speaking on one and monitoring two. That's quite a lot to monitor. But anyways, that's that. So you're aware of this system, the GMA 430 system. Now that is just essentially vertically placed in between the two GDUs, as Garmin likes to call it, Garmin display units. And the audio panel is therefore integrated into the display. Now with your PFD, it has all your systems there. You have your 6-pack, which is your artificial horizon, which is essentially the entire screen, right? You have your airspeed indicator, which is your speed tape on the left-hand side. You have your altimeter, which is your altitude tape on the right-hand side. You have your VSI, which is indicated as a VSI tape on the right of your altimeter. Then on just to the bottom, you have the HSI, head in situation indicator, no longer DI because it has a magnometer, and that magnometer is essentially slaved already to the GDU unit, or AHARS unit as they like to call it, and so you no longer have to align the DI with the compass. How fun is that? Then on top of the AH, you have the what do you have? You have the turn slip coordinator, which is actually divided into two parts. I believe it's the ball is indicated at the top, and then at the bottom is, I'm trying to remember where exactly at the bottom, but you have the slip side, the turn side of it. And then you have all the other features. You need this information for when I buy my G1000. You need it, man. Honestly, in fact, I'm going to say to you now, you may not even need a G1000 unit. Honestly, with the systems that Garmin, the options that they have available today, G1000 you don't actually need. And G1000 is quite an expensive unit, The G1000, I think, can come up to 20 to 30, about $30,000 or so to have it as an aftermarket installation. You don't need it. You don't actually need it, and I'll show you shortly why. But let's continue with this. Cool. Now, let's talk about the MFD, which is the multifunction display. And let me tell you this. Each screen can be a redundant screen. Your redundancy is essentially these two screens. If one fails, the other one can act as the other. But the MFD has the EMS system on the right-hand side, right? On the left-hand side of the right-hand screen. EMS system is your engine management system. It has all your tacho. It has a lot more detail. And obviously, you'd need to integrate these sensors into your engine in order to have a lot more clearer information, such as what your CHT is, EGT, etc. CHT for each cylinder head temperature, then your tacho, etc., etc., etc. Then you have your moving map, and that's pretty much it. So your MFD can become the PFD as well if your PFD fails. You can see there's a red button here just underneath on the audio panel itself. When you hit that red button, then whichever screen that has failed, the other one will become the PFD, and it will show you everything from your engine to your map to your 6 basic instruments. So that's the G1000. Now here's the issue, or the past issue with the G1000 is such that it works like buying airtime in Southern Africa. In Southern Africa, if you have a pay-as-you-go SIM card, the pay-as-you-go SIM card, if you were to buy airtime, you would dial in a number, dial it in, and it gives you a list of tell me more. He says it gives you a list of options. Get your balance, buy airtime, what else? Buy data, whatever it may be, like 7 options. So now you have to click, okay, I'll choose option number 2. It gives you another list of options, another 5, another 6, whatever it may be. The point I'm trying to get to is this. There's a lot of page upon sub-page that you have to go through before you get to the main feature that you are looking for, which is maybe buying data, or buying voice minutes, whatever it may be. This is the same thing. The same philosophy applies with the PFD and the MFD of the Garmin system, where you have to click a button. For example, over here we have flight plan, right? You would have to click the flight plan button so that it brings up the flight plan page, and then you would have to now scroll down to another option, which is another sub page. Before then, you can input your flight plan into the PFD, right? It's the same thing with the transponder. You would have to scroll and move to the transponder section, which you can find on the bottom right hand corner here. Input the transponder code, which you can use these buttons over here, because it would list numbers 0 to 9, and where you'll be able to input the transponder code, and therefore press enter, and that's it. Sub pages. The issue with the whole sub page thing is that if you're a VFR pilot, for example, The idea is that you're supposed to be looking outside. You're not supposed to be focusing so much inside. Now, if you're looking outside, you're not looking out for other aircraft and keeping separation of other aircraft, and you're focused on, right, I need to go to page 2, then page 4. After page 4, let me go to that page 6, etc., etc. Your eyes are too much in. And so with the newer system, as I understand it, and that can be corrected, the NXI system, next generation, it is a touch screen. And because it's a touch screen, you can directly interact with the feature. So, for example, if you have an autopilot system included, because you may choose to not have one, because that's just an additional cost. If you have an autopilot system included, you can click, let's say, on the speed tape, and let's say you want to maintain a speed of 100 knots, for example, or 200 knots. You click, and then you would type in the number 100 knots, 200 knots, and that's it. Done. Changed. Simple. A lot more simpler. You are having direct interactive contact with that particular feature than having to go through a lot of sub pages. Okay. So that's the G1000. Okay, essentially the philosophy of PFD and MFD is something that you have to keep in mind, going from your single engine piston aircraft all the way to a turbine 4-engine 2-engine airliner or corporate jet. Okay. Now, Tito, you are asking what are the other options that are available in terms of glass cockpit from Garmin. By the way, Garmin, I'll come to the other manufacturers. Garmin has this panel, which is heavily used in Sling. This panel, it has a combination of what is called the GX3, the G5, and then this is the GTN 650. The GX3, you can buy it non-certified, meaning you can use it as a VFR, to fly VFR. You will not be able to fly IFR with it, the GX3, the non-certified version. It'll be a lot cheaper. It's less than $5,000, and that's great. Then, in actual fact, you don't even need to buy the GX3. You can buy the G5. The G5, you can buy 2 of them. One to use as your artificial horizon, and the other one to use as your HSI. And that is now less than $3,000. There is, in fact, even a cheaper version than that provided by Garmin. Just Google the G275. The G275 it's a round dial, but it's a digital display where it has, you can use it as an AH, you can use it as an HSI, or whatever you so wish. You can buy like 6 of those and have your 6 different instruments, airspeed indicator, AH, HSI, so on and so forth, right? Or you just need to buy 2 and they can change between pages between the 2. A lot cheaper, right? That again can be a VFR option. If you want your panel to, however, become an instrument panel, you will need a GPS unit, a GNSS, so to speak, unit, which is the GTN 650. This one here. I don't know if I got a picture of the GTN. Let me see if I got. Okay, I've got the G3X here. Do I have? Yeah, here we go. So this is the GTN 650 on the left-hand side. Expensive equipment this is. You're familiar with the okay, I just read it. You're familiar with the one on the Sling. The GTN 650 has a COM and GPS unit. You can get what is called the GNX 375 or GNC 375, I think. Yeah, that's correct. Which only has the GPS, and then you have to get a separate COM unit. For example, let's say you take the GNX 375, which is just the GPS, and then you use a Bendix King for a COM unit. That's perfectly fine, whatever. And then you have the G5 as your AH and your HSI. Okay, nice, cheap, but up-to-date systems on your aircraft. Cool. The GTN 650 has replaced the GNS 430. And then the GTN 750 has replaced the GNS 530. Once again, GNS 430 and GNS 530. GNS 530, if you've played Flight Simulator X 10, 2000 and what was it? 7? 8? Can't remember. Any Cessna 172 that you would play or open up, you would find the GNS 530 model. And then in today's world, a lot of the flight schools have the GNS 430 model in their Cessna 172s or in their Pipers. Okay? So that's what the GTN 650 and GTN 750 have replaced. Excellent. Good. Touchscreen, fancy stuff. On the right-hand side here, we have an autopilot system, GFC 500. It's not going to go into it, but it's nice. Right. Okay, so just a little bit of information of the G3X. The G3X was introduced into the marketplace in 2014. Okay, initially used in the LSA market as a non-certified device that is now certified and can be used as a standalone VFR panel. Behind the scenes for VFR, it has a GPS antenna, an AHRS sensor, and magnometer. Magnometer is your compass. I don't want to use the word receiver or sensor, so to speak, of which essentially is your compass linked with your HSI there. Then for IFR, it needs to be coupled with a Garmin navigator and comm unit like a GNX 375 or GTN 650. Or old school, if compatible, your GMA 340 audio panel with the GNS 430. Okay, so that's a G3X. Okay, now let's move on to larger aircraft. Let's say you go get yourself a King Air type rating B200 or B19. Well, B1900s you'll actually find they don't really have much of these systems. It's typically the King Airs that have them. So let's say you go onto a King Air. And you're lucky that the operator has decided to install the latest avionics on board. Excellent. Your King Air generally has the G1000 unit. So that can be a very easy transition if you are training, for example, on a Cessna 172 or DA40, which has a G1000, or a Piper, which actually Piper Cherokees, some of them have the Avidyne Electra. Yeah. I digress. This is what we call the Collins ProLine Fusion. Hey, what the... Okay. Wireless is, I'm really disappointed that FS is heading towards gameplay. I know, right? Gameplay entertainment rather than that sticking with realism and improving simulation of FS24. I completely... Well, let's see what it looks like. But looking at MSFS... Or let's go back to FSX. The flight dynamics of FSX. I'm trying to remember if they were not really the most realistic. I mean, X-Plane came about and dominated that market with the physics. This is why you'll find a lot of certified flight simulators, that is FNPT2s in aviation training organizations, have as a background, as the world engine, X-Plane 11 and X-Plane 12. X-Plane all the way. X-Plane 11 and X-Plane 12 has the best flight dynamics by far. And then you had P3D, I think. P3D were very good at, or are very good with regards to buttonology procedures. MSFX now is excellent, I would say, as a navigational trainer, VFR navigational trainer, because the world looks extremely real. And so if your objective is to better your VFR flying, go for MSFX. If your objective is to better your actual practice of maneuvers and to an extent buttonology procedures, go for X-Plane. The thing is, X-Plane has a lot of add-ons developed. MSFX is essentially, in my opinion, a foundation, a world foundation for the future of developers to create new add-ons in terms of aircraft, uh, new add-ons in terms of airports and VATSIM and all of that stuff. MSFS has yet to have the time in the marketplace to have developers to develop specific new add-ons for the system. Think of MSFX as GTA 6. Was it 5 or 6? Grand Theft Auto, right? In the PC world today, you can find so many different options that you can include in GTA, right? And I think that's what Microsoft I think that's what their vision is. Their vision is, let us create the greatest world, or the most realistic world that we can, and then we're going to leave it to the developers to create the best aircraft options and the best. I don't know if they'll be able to change the physics. I think that's something that really needs to come about. But I definitely agree with you. The whole MSFS 2024, it does have a taste of gameplay type of feel than actual realism. So yeah, let's see. Okay, so now the King Air. The King Air 350, 200, 90. Well, the 90 series I think is soon coming out of production, or might be out of production already. King Air, you can get on board here. The Garmin G1000. I think you can also install the G3000 if you so wish. But then now, what they're mostly promoting is the Collins ProLine Fusion system. And this Collins ProLine Fusion system has the same ethos as that of you touch the screen and you are directly interacting with the key system that you want to play with, airspeed, transponder, all of that stuff. But also it's just that connectivity aspect of it. If you have a tablet, and typically it's an iOS tablet, Weiler is asking, how does a Glass HUD work and used exactly for like the A350? I'm going to come to that. I am actually going to come to that. Thanks, Weiler, for that question. And Tito says, I saw Trent Palmer added the Freedom Fox on MSFX. I haven't seen that yet. I'm going to have a look at it. I will definitely check that out. Thanks, Tito. Okay, so the King Air. Oh, the connectivity. So then now you have your tablet, iOS tablet. And I think you guys have seen this before. You have ForeFlight, or you have the Garmin app, or whichever app it may be, and then particularly ForeFlight, and then you will file a flight plan on your ForeFlight app. You have your entire flight plan here, your weight. You can basically be at home with your tablet. You input all your data, the weather system, the fuel on board, the packs, weight and balance, all of that stuff. You put it there on your ForeFlight. You get to the cockpit, and then all you do is take your tablet and then swipe it, swipe all that information onto your MFD or the avionics system that you have on board. Intuitive, simple, easy, and just done and dusted. In comparison, if you think of the airline world, your Airbus A320, even your Airbus A350, your Boeing 777, you arrive 2 hours before your flight. You go to the crew room. You meet the captain, or you are the captain. You meet your crew. You meet your cabin crew. You then discuss different aspects of the flight, weather, NOTAMs, weight and balance, flight planning, manifest, let me put it more appropriately. And then you then head to the aircraft. You get into the crew bus. You're taken to your aircraft. Whoever's flying that leg, who has PF, sits in the plane. Whoever's PM, pilot monitoring, hops out and goes and does the pre-flight. Now your PF is sitting there and crunching in numbers, inputting data into the FMC. what is called the flight management computer. It's not here. It's not here on the King Air. In fact, let's just go directly to an image of. Let's go directly to an image on an Airbus A320. There we go. We've got our Airbus A320, right? And you have the FMC located here, or otherwise known as the FMS. And you have to then input the wind profiles into the FMC. You have to input your weight and balance. You have to set up the INS, inertial navigational system, and all of that stuff so that the FMC can calculate appropriately what is the best speed that you need to climb and what altitude should you use as a cruising altitude, your step climb along your route, and all of that stuff. You are sitting there and inputting the data. That is the old school way, which is obviously still widespreadly used. Whereas today, if you go onto a King Air with the ProLine Fusion system, where you're at home with your tablet and you've inputted all that data, you've done that at home, and then you just go to the airport, you hop into the plane, and you just swipe it onto the plane, game changer. And that is is slowly being introduced into the airline world as well, where the crew members' tablets can be connected. They are slowly upgrading the software systems on board to allow you to just have that connectivity, but it's slow. It's not so widespread. Okay, then so you have the Collins system on a King Air. Rarely would you see the Honeywell system. So I'm going to come to the Honeywell system. Before that, we're looking here at the Challenger 604, corporate and high net worth private jet market. G500, Gulfstream, etc. A lot of them have the Collins system on board. And actually, while an interesting question that you've asked about the glass HUD, how for the A3, well, just speaking about the A350, have you noticed the A350 and the A220 look very different to that of your A320, A330, a little bit the A380. Have you noticed? And that's because the A350 and the A220, for the most part, have Collins systems on board, which is why they look very similar to that of your Bombardier, your Challenger 604 here. So that's just an interesting fact or point. Okay, the point I'm trying to get to is as I discuss going from your single engine piston to multi-engine piston plane to a turbine or turboprop aircraft, to your light jets or medium to heavy corporate jets, private jets, to the airliner world, the philosophy of a glass cockpit is the same. You have the PFD, the primary flight display. In this instance, Airbus they call this the ND, the navigation display. In the middle, you have the ECAM system, which is split into two screens. And then, of course, you have the FMC. Like I said, the ProLine Fusion system no longer requires an FMC. The FMC is essentially integrated into the three screens, your PFD and your MFD. The ECAM system on the Airbus is essentially your EMS, your engine management system. Each manufacturer calls it differently. They call it ECAM. Your EMS, if you just go straight to the King Air system, you can see it's located on the MFD on the left-hand side. If you go to the G1000 or even the G3X, again, you can have it located on the left-hand side of your PFD. On your G1000, it's located on the left-hand side of your MFD, right? So the philosophy is staying the same through and through. Now, I want you to look at the Airbus A320 here and the ATR 72. Guys, do you see any similarity between the two? The ATR 72 and the Airbus A330, A340, dinosaur plane, an A330. The similarity is this: the manufacturer or the main provider of avionics to Airbus is Thales SA. And the question is, where does Thales SA, where are they based? They're based in France. I believe even in Toulouse itself. That's interesting. Based in Toulouse. And Thales SA is the main avionics provider to ATR and to Airbus as well. And if you look closely at the glass displays, forgetting the black rim around them, if you look closely at the glass displays, you will find that the avionics, particularly the ND, have a look at that ND, and have a look at the Airbus A320 ND. Okay, have a look at the ECAM system, and have a look at the ECAM system here on the Airbus A320. You will find that there is a very close relationship between the two because it's from the same manufacturer. That's an ATR 72-600 with the glass cockpit. Yes, it is. It is an ATR 72-600 with a glass cockpit. There is similarity because it is the same manufacturer. Now, if you take an example of a typical career path here in Southern Africa, where you go and you become a flight instructor, or you become a bush pilot and you go into the caravans, or you go into a Caravan 2 actually, or B1900 or King Air, and then you hop into an ATR 42 or Q100 to Q400, particularly the Q400 as well. If you hop into an ATR 72 at some point, which you can, it is such an easier transition to get into the Airbus family because the systems are pretty much the same. Okay, good. So that's one point I wanted to make there. Now, just talking about the airline world in terms of how each airline manufacturer, as in Airbus, Embraer. Embraer uses Honeywell systems, by the way. Honeywell system is found on Embraer. Boeing and Airbus. Let's go to Boeing. Boeing will put out a tender and say, hey, we need certain avionics for our new Boeing 777X. And for the PFD, we want this particular type of spec. For the ND, we want this spec. And then for the EMS system, by the way, Boeing has their own name for the EMS system. I can't quite remember it off the top of my head right now. We want this spec. Okay. Now, a whole list of suppliers will tender for that procurement contract. And Boeing typically says to Honeywell, because you will mostly find Honeywell on the Boeing flight deck or flight decks, they will say, oh, congratulations, you have won this contract. We like your system. Now we would like you to spec it to our desire, to our needs. You guys know, this is what SA and Southern Africa operate Boeing except SAA. SA and Southern Africa mainly operate Boeing except SAA. Yeah, SAA decided to switch up and go to the Airbus family. Southern Africa 737, Sapphire 737, Kenya, what you call Kenya, SADC, I guess, 737, definitely 737. Zimbabwe, I honestly don't know what they're operating nowadays. But Southern Africa, Embraer and the Boeing have a big share in the local marketplace. But okay, so looking at the Boeing 777, so Boeing will say to the manufacturer, great, we love your avionics. Now we want you to tailor it to our design. When you hop into a Boeing flight deck, you can clear. When you hop into, if you don't even look at the outside of the aircraft and you literally hop onto the flight deck, you can instantly tell this is a Boeing airplane. It's got that brown suede panel or panels with green highlights across the instruments. That is a clear-cut Boeing panel. You hop into an Airbus. The Airbus is very clear cut. It has a grayish panel design, right? With a light, not light green, but it's like a lightish yellowish color, highlights across all of the instruments. So these, I'll call them whitetail suppliers. I think it's Universal something systems. Let me have a look. Universal Avionics Systems Corporation, Collins, Honeywell, and Thales SA. These manufacturers will supply to Boeing and to Airbus, but they will come together, or Boeing will put all these systems together to make it look like their Boeing aircraft, to make it look like their Airbus aircraft. But essentially, you are flying the same equipment. So your transition from your general aviation to an airliner flight deck is pretty much the same. You are essentially flying the same philosophy. Your PFD, your navigation display, your EMS system, and then just in addition an FMC system that will most likely in the future be eradicated and be integrated into the DUs, display units, right? Just like, well, Airbus A350 doesn't have the touchscreen dynamic yet. You still have to use a grip mouse and keyboard pad. So that's not yet been integrated. Okay, now just to tie things up, while your question, how does a glass HU HUD work and used for exactly? And what is it used for? Oh, I see. Okay. So the HUD, obviously the HUD system had come from the, what was it? It's not the F-15. Was it the F-16? F-18? F-18 Hornet, I think. Yeah, I think the HUD system had originally come, no, I think it is the F-16 actually. I'll have to look into that. So now, obviously the mission objective of the HUD display in a fighter aircraft environment is such that you don't want to be looking down. Again, think about it now. Think about that point I made about the G1000 where it had a lot of sub pages. You don't want to be looking down and dialing in and looking at sub pages and well, not necessarily sub pages, but looking at information down at the screens versus looking outside at aircraft, particularly in the fight in warfare. You know, aircraft which are trying to kill you, or missiles which are trying to kill you. You want to look outside at all times. You want to be situationally aware of what's happening around you. And so in HOD, the HUD provides you with all the necessary or key information, your AH, your speed tape, your altimeter, your HSI, etc. is all provided for eyes out, because that's where your eyes need to be. The same thing happens with the HOD in a private, corporate or private jet, or that of a commercial airline like the A350. For key phases of flight, they are essentially, I would say, two key critical phases of flight. Takeoff is one, and two, the approach and landing. I would definitely say the approach and landing, particularly if you are in the IFR environment, instrument meteorological conditions environment. You are focused on the instruments, yes, but when you are transitioning from, you come to MDA or DA, which is called a decision altitude. Decision altitude being that once you are clear, you break the clouds or you break the fog or whatever, and you have the runway in sight, you want to be looking outside. And it's such an easier transition if you have the HUD in front of you, that you already have the instruments in front of you and you're already looking outside at the same time. So it's such an easier transition to go from the cloud or IMC conditions to VMC conditions as you are landing. Now, in terms of how the HUD works, the HUD has a small, it's a projector. It's you have a glass screen that you just bring down, right? And it has a small little projector overhead you, which transmit either overhead or below and transmits to the glass or to the HUD. This is the same thing or the same application that you'll see in the newer BMWs or Mercedes Benz, where the your speedometer can be displayed onto the your windshield or the lower section of the windshield as you are driving. It's a projector. It is projecting this image onto the glass. It's the same principle. Okay. Right. Okay, gentlemen, and everyone else, or anyone else who's going to be watching this at a later stage or is watching this now, I think that's pretty much it. I think we can wrap it up there. So thank you very much for joining in. Let me transition back to the main video. So thank you very much for joining in. I've really enjoyed this. Thank you very much to Wyler and Tito for interacting, and as well for Roberto and Pilot Nati as well. It's great to see you guys again, and it's great to interact with you guys. But yeah, Glass Cockpit, guys. Glass Cockpit is the future. You know, I haven't even touched all the aspects that I wanted. There was one more aspect that I wanted to discuss, and that was about WAS, Wide Area Augmentation Service or network, so to speak. You know how in the US you have the GPS network, and then you essentially have an augmentation system that provides a lot more accuracy of the GPS system on the ground. So in terms of doing instrument approaches, you know, your RNP, which is, just think of it as the accuracy in which you do the approach or the information that's given to you, is 99%, right? It's just a lot more accurate. And something like that is taking place on the African continent. It is called ASBAS or ASAS, ASAS, the African something augmentation service, which I cannot remember the rest of it. So I wanted to talk more about that and how that's being developed, particularly in the Southern African market. But I think we will talk about that in another podcast. We will end it there. Thank you very much to everybody for joining in, and I will catch you guys on the next live stream. When that is, I do not know, but I am definitely going to try and do this more often. Just gonna hop onto the channel and just do a live stream and just engage with you guys. So cheers, guys. Have a good night. If you are in this part of the world, if you're not, if you're somewhere else, I will catch you guys later. Wyler, what are you saying? Great stream. Good night. Are you still currently a CFI, or do you plan on moving? I'm still a CFI. I want to move on. I want to get to I see. Okay, got it. Yeah, so I want to get to a CFII equivalent. In this part of the world, it's called grade 2. A grade 2 instructor, you're allowed to instruct up to private pilot license, commercial pilot license, instrument rating, and interestingly enough, in this part of the world, it allows you to be a flight examiner. So like a DPE, you can test for PPL candidates as well as night rating candidates, which is a lot of power to be given to an instructor, I would say, because I know in the US you need to be tested by a DPE. In the UK, it's the same thing. You need to be tested by what do they call it there? FE, I think, a flight examiner. So yeah, it's interesting that grade 2 has that much power to test PPL candidates. The other reason why I want to do it is because later on in one's career, if you want to become a training captain, particularly in South Africa, I would say, or maybe even the Southern African market, if you want to become a training captain on any particular aircraft, let's even just say the 737, you would need to be a grade 2 instructor. I'll tell you a story. There's a fellow instructor that I know. He's what they call a grade 3 instructor, meaning he can only teach people up to PPL. However, he has 16,000 flying hours, and a lot of that is on the Boeing 737. In order for him to become a training captain, which he wants to be, he's working towards captaincy at this stage, he needs to be a grade 2. So what does he need to do? He needs to come all the way back and fly, well, not necessarily, but he is flying 172s and Piper Cherokees in order to upgrade to grade 2, in order to have a smoother transition to become a training captain on a 737. So the benefit of becoming a grade 2 at this point, it will help you out, years from now. So I love teaching, as you guys know, and yes, I am still a CFI, and I want to become a grade 2 instructor, which is again equivalent to CFII and basically a flight examiner. Cool. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Weiler. Thanks, Tito. Thanks to the rest. And I will catch you guys later. Have a good night and have a good day. Cheers.